This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London.
Well, hello everyone, thank you for coming to the Social Scholar. This week we've got Naomi Paxton, who will be talking about being part of the AHRC BBC Radio Free Generation Thinking Scheme. Naomi is currently working as a SAS as, I can't remember the exact title,
Cultural engagement.
And you'll be working on sort of BD and a few other sort of items around public engagement. So, I just wanted, before we start, to mention that this event is being filmed, but it will only be the speakers part that is actually on live. So if you ask questions after this, don't worry, that won't be as part of it. If you do ask questions through the talk, that might be captured. So that's just to let you know. It'll be the start of the show. So,
sure. Should I stand up and then you can all see the... Sorry for my husky voice today, I'm going with it. Hello, I'm Naomi. Great, and thank you very much for coming. So was there life before New Generation Thinkers? Well, yes, I was an actress. Went to university, went to drama school, worked as an actress for about 15 years. Hadn't really thought about academia particularly, and then became really obsessed when I heard about the story of the Actresses Franchise League, which was the West End wing of the suffrage movement. And it all fell into place. It was my Venn diagram of happy place, history, theatre, feminism, and that was in the middle. Oh my gosh! And have not looked back since. As soon as I found out about the suffrage plays, I started putting them on because they're really important. It's important that they become one of my instinct as a performer is to put the work on. So I suppose I just kind of automatically shared everything I found. Partly to get more information, but partly also just to gain in confidence. Just before starting my PhD, I had a moment of going, I'm going mad. Are these plays awful? So I put, hang on a second. So I put 3 of them on at the Union Theatre, and it was fantastic. I wasn't going mad. I thought people would come and go, how marvellous, big hats, well done you. But actually, feverish conversations in the bar afterwards. Where did you get these? So many want to say that, and I thought absolutely yes. There's so many issues here that we can talk about. I managed to get onto Radio 4 Women's Hour actually to promote these just by emailing them, and it's just being lucky. I had Samantha Bond, the actress who directed all of these for me, to dangle in front of them, which I think helped immensely. But that was my first experience of going on sort of the BBC to talk about these, and I was, as you can imagine, wildly enthusiastic and very bouncy. But we sold out, which was great. And then with a similar edge of naivety, I emailed Bloomsbury and said, why don't you do a book of playable suffrage plays? This is my lovely cast, that's me in the middle there, megalomaniac. Why don't you do a lovely book of suffrage plays that are playable? Because having put so many of the plays on and done readings, I thought, I know there are some that don't work, but I know there are some that do. And they did, and that was fantastic. And so I was sort of doing readings of those and trying to get actors involved in those. As a launch for the book, I did organise this, Stage Rights, a living literature walk, with a company called Scary Little Girls. I'm an associate artist of that company. And we had actors stationed all over the West End, and the audience self-guided along a walk, and they would suddenly come across an actor who was doing a little bit of an extract or something from the play, or also some material that we commissioned. And again, that was brilliant. We got some good media coverage, we sold out completely, and I've been promoting it on a Resonance FM, on a radio show called Out in South London, Resonance FM, and a BBC Radio 3 producer from what was then Nightwaves heard it and invited me on with one of the 2013-14 New Generation Thinkers to talk about it and to talk about the book, which was my first encounter with the scheme at all, which was great. As another launch for the book, again, just by emailing going, why not? I contacted the National Theatre and said, you should do this. This is exciting for you. And so we did. So that's Samantha Bond again, and lovely Janie D, both of whom have been fantastically supportive. And we had an extended platform performance in the Littleton at the National Theatre. We did extracts from the plays. My supervisor was there. The whole thing was chaired. We had questions. It was wonderful. It's available on SoundCloud. It was a really interesting way about talking really interesting way of learning to talk about research, learning to frame research, learning to speak quickly about the plays. I just put that up because I was just so impressed that we were on the front of One of the other things, the ways that I've disseminated my research, this is me. I do a comedy character called Ada Camp, who really is my acting outlet now that I'm not really acting anymore. But funnily enough, that's led to all kinds of links because I'm still working in the industry. So I'm a theatre reviewer and I can go on out in South London. One of the people who was sent my book to review ran a comedy club in Bristol, so then got me to do comedy, and then I wrote about suffragist playwrights in the book that she did. Croydon Comedy Festival, I just had to promote that, I mean, who would want to promote that. And then Z-List Deadlist. I don't know if any of you have heard of Z-List Deadlist? No. So it's a podcast and a live show, a bit like Museum Show-Off, I suppose, where historians and comics go on and have about 7 minutes to talk about somebody obscure from the past. I won with Jiu-Jitsu suffragette Edith Garrett there. But it's been an interesting way of kind of mashing up worlds, really. So my performance world and my feminist activism is also providing opportunities for the dissemination of my research. Ada Camp does not talk about suffragettes. I've tried, it doesn't really work. She does her own thing, but actually, as always, it's about the kind of backstage networks. And as always with theatre, kind of a who you know opportunity. Social media. I try to engage creatively with social media. A bit of a sad story, I've blogged regularly. When I first started my research, I was working at the Mousetrap Theatre box office. And I thought, I know, I'll cobble together a handy crossword. An easy crossword that anyone who's ever interested in the plays can come and can do. And now looking back on it, it was cripplingly hard. And anybody who could have engaged with it would not have done because they're emeritus professors of stuff. So I was trying to be accessible, but it was impenetrable. Absolutely impenetrable. And then I tried to make a... Do you remember that game where you have to kind of mash up and make lines 2048? Have you played that on your phone or anything? No? Well, I made an Actresses Franchise League edition thinking this would be a wonderful way to engage. Of course nobody played. Who are these people? Nobody knows. I did start a Twitter thing called #100TheatreWomen with a friend of mine, where every day we put up a theatre woman of the past or present who had inspired us. And that became quite good. We made podcasts, we made vlogs, and we really got some engagement. And that was a way also of kind of talking a bit about my research, not too heavily, but just sort of adding it in and engaging a different and wider audience. This is a live Periscope shot of us playing a suffragette board game. Emily Matters is run by another actress, who is very keen to use social media. And I found Periscope, Twitter, and even silly online games very useful in terms of engaging a wider audience. You can get in there very quickly as a hook and go, look at this, and then run away, and people might follow you, or might come and look at your blog. Let's have a look. Final sort of this research and public thing. I know this is all a bit random, but that's sort of how it's been. It's kind of been chasing leads, really. So this is me learning some jiu-jitsu, and then doing it in that hat, which is not advised, in the Pankhurst's front room as part of the Wonder Woman Manchester Festival. So me with a load of students from the University of Ohio doing something at Ellen Terry's house in Smallheim. Comedy suffrage monologues as part of the No More Page 3 campaign. And this was in Glasgow, chairing a panel about women in theatre, women in the arts now. So it sort of opened up a lot of opportunities, really. I think having something so specific to talk about, suffragette theatre, seems quite reductive, but actually it's been tremendously interesting to open that up. It touches all sorts of areas, and I think a real strength has been the fact that I am a performer, that my instinct is to get out and speak about these plays, get out and speak about these people, get out and speak about these issues, and that means that that's rewarded. Yes. So, what you've come to hear about, applying and auditioning for the New Generation Thinking Scheme. So, does everybody know about that? Yes, no. So, the scheme is an annual competition run jointly by the AHRC and BBC Radio 3's Free Thinking to find 10 new academics from across the arts and humanities and give them a chance to get their research out into broadcast media. So you're eligible if you're working at a UK research organisation, you're in the final year of your PhD, or an early career researcher with no more than 8 years of post-PhD experience. I applied in 2014. I was in my writing up year of my PhD, which might have been a bit mad. Because I was and am a regular listener to Radio 4 and Radio 3 podcasts, review shows, features, essays. I love it. And I've always thought radio is a really special medium. through which you can kind of introduce and discuss ideas. You kind of get right to the heart of people's homes and cars and lives, which is wonderful. And you're not hampered by how you look, which is tremendous, actually. A few years ago, I played a mermaid in a Doctor Who audio. I've got one fan letter a year. But I was really touched because I would never be cast as a mermaid on stage. I would never be cast as a mermaid on TV or film. But on radio, I can be a mermaid. And it was just a wonderful way to kind of bypass a lot. I mean, obviously voice, so I suppose there are issues around kind of class and accent. But in terms of getting in ideas and drawing pictures on the inside of people's heads, it's just a fantastic medium. So I wanted more research about the AHRC Franchise League to be known, and more importantly to contribute to debate and knowledge about feminist theatre past and present, bring to life the performative propaganda of the suffrage movement, and challenge ideas about the canon of 20th century British theatre, which is what we always end up talking about. Why aren't there more women on stage? Why are we not British? These issues still remain. And because we don't know about the wonderful, broad, happy shoulders that we have to stand on. It was thrilling to be shortlisted and make it through the audition stage. Because I'd been on the year before, talking about the walks, with somebody who was broadly doing suffrage musical theatre, I thought, well, they would want me because they ticked that box with her. So I sort of applied in a gung-ho way, thinking, oh, well, stop it. And was amazed to get through. What was interesting is one of the producers on the audition day, one of them said, oh, it was wonderful, we've never heard about this. I thought, I was on your show. I didn't recognise it. The audition day is really interesting. If you're tempted to apply and you get through, it's a fascinating, hardcore, but really interesting day. They have 3, I think, 2 in London and 1 in Manchester. And you kind of are talked to by the Radio 3 producers about what they want, given kind of examples of good and bad practice in terms of presenting styles, asked to rejig ideas, have a live debate. It's very seat of your pants. I felt, with sufficient coffee, I really enjoyed it. I suppose maybe as a form in an improvisatory kind of, it's that sort of thing. If I either run away in the corner or just go, right, okay, stop it. But what was wonderful was seeing everybody's enthusiasm for their topics. I have to say, I felt incredibly lucky to be studying. I was mostly self-funded. And I was waiting for that sort of second year slump where everyone kept going, oh, it's a nightmare, oh, you'll hate it. And I was thinking, oh, no, I'm going to hate it, it's going to happen. And I never did. It was hard work, but I absolutely loved it. And it was wonderful to be in a room full of shiny-eyed, passionate people. And I thought, oh, hello, people. So I left thinking, well, it's been a wonderful day, and we'll see what happens. We were told at the audition day that shortlisted candidates who don't make it through to the final 10 are likely to be contacted by Through Thinking to develop programme ideas, so it's definitely worth applying anyway. I'm sure they mean that, because otherwise it's a very dangerous thing to say. And they sent around email addresses to everybody at the workshop day, so it felt like quite a constructive process. So it's definitely worth applying. I did, however, make it through to the final 10. This is my lot. So 8 of them were already postdocs. Sophie had just submitted, and I was in my writing up here. So topics variously included animal rights, the cultural history of beards, Indian translations of Shakespeare, the life of Disraeli, the link between citizenship and consumerism in 19th century America, Victorian suspicions of animal camouflage, very interesting. So quite a diverse bunch within our arts and humanities, united by our enthusiasm for our research and our desire to communicate both our enthusiasm and our research. So my year as a New Generation thinker gave me the opportunity to speak at the Hay Festival, the Latitude Festival, the Free Thinking Festival at Sage, more of that later, and of course on the radio. There were quite a lot of seat of your pants moments. At the Sage Gates Head we had to come up with 2 ideas to change the world. And be interrogated by members of the public in a speed dating exercise. So you had a minute to pitch your idea, and then they had a minute to ask you questions. Again, it was one of those just go, right, okay, and do it. And they were sort of tweeting and photographing the way through. As a lot with media I've learned, it's all very last minute. It's all very nothing, and then now! So if you don't like that, don't do that, because it is. You have to find that challenging, inspiring, and galvanising, and not terrifying, because that's how it works. at Latitude we improvised a debate on the limits of knowledge while sat on the sofa, and one of the things I might mention this later. So framing research. One of the things I found interesting is working with producers, the radio producers. You'll often have a 45-minute to hour-long chat with a Radio 3 producer. They are brilliant. A really in-depth thing you'll send through all your research, and then it will turn into a 4 to 6 minute interview live on air, in which no detail or complexity can be discussed. And it's mostly about the presenter wanting to either tell you what they know or frame your research within the context of what they know. So it can be incredibly frustrating to do, and sort of have to go through a frustrating bit of why me then, if you just want the Wikipedia version, why didn't you? It's not about that. It's about you learning to frame your research in the way that they want, in the way that they think is right. But I think the producers are absolutely fantastic, and it's a real pleasure to work with them. Editing is really important. It's always tricky anyway to edit your own work, but also then to have the kind of benefit of their experience. It's great. They know their audience, and they build very carefully your work. The other thing about editing is also if you're recording, it's fine when you're live, but if you're recording, you might write something wonderful, of course, and then when it goes out, you'll find that 30 seconds, 10 seconds has been cut. This is tremendously frustrating, but also a really important learning curve. I did, at the Free Thinking Festival, my big essay, The Theatre of Their Own, horrible picture. We wrote drafts and drafts and drafts and drafts and drafts of this, and it was done live to the audience and then recorded as well, and then played sort of 2 weeks later on Radio 3. And I'd written a sort of thing at the end about, women in theatre now, and which went well in the auditorium, and then that had been cut for the broadcast. And the thing is, I've been promoting it all on social media and saying to people, listen to this, this is my thing. And the meat, my idea of the meat of it had gone, which is interesting. And my learning curve from that is, thread the meat through. If you leave it all in one cuttable place, it might be cut. So that's interesting for me, actually, to write a construct algorithm. Thread your meat through, that's the takeaway from this concept. They were really keen to promote, so they did a tweet storm, which was great, actually, because they've got 48.k followers, 4.6k followers. And that was also really interesting to frame my talk into 12 tweets, 12 key nuggets of information that could be shared and retweeted and possibly work in a standalone way. Was really curious. So in terms of dealing with research, not only am I trying to summarise essentially one chapter of my PhD in 12 minutes, make it relevant to now, give it a hook, fill it full of accessible language, but I'm also trying to get 12 pithy nuggets of information out of it that can be tweeted and that I can share. These are all really good challenges, I think, really good skills. Challenges and joys of working with media, in my experience thus far. Very short time frame, I've mentioned this. Black and white answers, which is hard when you are not thinking of research in that way. What was interesting for me was that I'd mostly relied on the plays, or I'd advocated the plays. I'd put the plays on, I'd done extracts from the plays. And with this, it wasn't about that. It was about the ideas, it was about the contexts, it was about the stories, and it wasn't about the plays, and that was a complete change for me. It's frustrating to prepare so much and then say so little, but actually the long game is it's about the wider networks of people you engage with. It's about the other producers, it's about the people in the room, it's about being a good person to work with, not being tricky, not being difficult, turning up. So the off-air stuff is just as important as the on-air stuff. I suppose there's an issue of maybe a possibly misplaced feeling of responsibility towards the archive for me, and a fear of misrepresenting the work, particularly as a very junior scholar. I mean, I still hadn't submitted my PhD, and it's not a topic that's widely known, but also I don't want to screw anything up by misrepresenting it. On the other hand, the opportunity to advocate for the archiving material, as well as highlight its presence, was a really important one, and I felt I could kind of bring into colour some of the black and white images of the past, putting names to faces and stories to names. So there were feelings of insecurity, especially as a new scholar in the least experience of the group. I kind of felt that a lot of people, my only word for this is strokey beard. A lot of people were going, And I felt much more... but I learned. I think I learned. Well, one of the interesting things, I suppose, if you're bringing new research to the table, is that you can't take for granted that other people know even the context of it. There isn't actually an awful lot of theatre scholarship in any depth, so you're kind of using terms and using concepts that you're familiar with, that people aren't familiar with. So it's a kind of a zooming out of your research, not only the actual facts, but also the context. Drama as a discipline hasn't been really widely represented in new genre thinkings. History, yes, English, yes, but not theatre. I was coming from the drama department. So that was an interesting way of framing it. When I later went on to talk about, I was the RA on a project around theatre and poverty last year, and I went on to talk about participatory theatre and applied theatre, and it felt that there wasn't really a framework of reference, or the presenters were happy to kind of work within. And that was a challenge for me. If I have the chance to go on and talk about it more, I think I'll have to make much more accessible frames of reference, not only for the public but also for the production team, which is reasonable, they can't know everything. Gains, I've said, huge plus working with producers, having media training, fabulous, sent off for media training, learning about the top line, how to do your top line, which is one of those annoying things, when they interview politicians, they don't answer the question, just say what they're going to say. That. Say, don't answer the question, just say what you're going to say. Reframing your research for other people and learning how other people access your research. That's really interesting. And the preconceptions they have. Reflections, regrets, and hope. Be a bit vulnerable, I suppose. I was a bit worried. I think there's something dangerous about relying on kind of quirk historicism. I was worried with such a limited time, I would always go for an extreme, or at least what seemed like an extreme to me, example as a hook or attention grabber, a kind of clickbait. So if I'm talking about, I often do, at events, I'll go, hello, I found out there were three great crazes in the Edwardian period. Vegetarianism, roller skating, and jiu-jitsu, and the suffragettes were all over them. Which is a good opener, and then you have three things, but also you're automatically, and it is problematic when you feel you're representing your research in that way. On the plus side, that kind of thing does seem to encourage some audience members to follow up on what they've heard, because online access is so easy now to research and archives. I had a memorable short email from a chap at Latitude who went, I thought you were lying about roller skating, but then I googled it and you're not. In hindsight, it probably was a bit bonkers to do it in my writing up here. But actually for me, that extra pressure and the confidence that it gave me helped. I had to do it. They weren't going to give me another 2 weeks. It had to be done, and it had to be done by tonight, and actually that's quite good. It made me look at my work differently, it engaged me in different writing styles, and it made me think harder about how very detailed research can be adapted for a more general audience. If you're already blogging about your research and you're active on social media, particularly on Twitter, you know how effective and stimulating getting little nuggets out there, sharing photos, sharing ideas, blogging can be, not only in terms of clarifying your own ideas and broadening appeal, but for making connections with people and the public. I was quite lucky in a way, even though I worked throughout my PhD, I was working in theatres, and I was constantly explaining what I was doing, constantly explaining, and actually that was really helpful. I was constantly shortening my topic, shortening everything, finding out the ways, finding out the stories that other people found interesting. Vegetarianism is a really good one. I was leading walks around the West End, not only for academics but for the public. And I'd be telling, I thought I was telling some deeply fascinating story outside of the theatre or Drury Lane about militancy and and then I'd mention there was a vegetarian restaurant. The takeaway would be, vegetarian restaurant? That's what I like, vegetarian. But actually it is, that's interesting. Okay, well why don't we come at that and then we can get in. So those things have been good. Just the sheer talking about it has been good. What do people find interesting? How can you relate it to their lives? What you are so privileged to have 3 minutes of people's time, get in there and make it worth their while, not your while. One thing to note, although it's under the AHRC funding schemes, you don't get a stipend for taking part. We got a small appearance fee for on the radio, and we got our accommodation paid for the festivals, but there was no fee. We made a film, there was no fee for that at all. It's worth bearing in mind. Fantastic opportunities. You need to be very flexible. You have to be able to get to London very quick and find tight deadlines, galvanising rather than terrifying. I realised I have a particular perspective as a performer that's valuable and quite unusual. to be within the theatre scene, to find these things very familiar, and to advocate for the plays as plays, I think is quite unusual rather than as pieces of literature. You are at the mercy of the presenters. That's a huge thing. So I would say research the presenters of whatever you're going on, how they frame things, where their egos need to be placed, and how best you can get any element of your research in there. One, I went on to talk about Alice in Wonderland, actually, in Suffrage Plays, and I had, again, a 45-minute chat with a brilliant producer. Then we got on, and it was 6 minutes. There were 3 of us, each from different topics. What are you going to, I've got 2 pages of nothing, no opportunity to say anything. So I suppose it's about harnessing any energy around that and trying to go in and grab your time as much as you can. For me, my target audience is the theatre industry, actually, because I so want to kind of create change, create confidence, give confidence to people. My target audience hasn't been really academics, it hasn't been, I suppose, the general public. For me, it's always been about speaking to up-and-coming artists and practitioners and actors and saying to them, there is a different canon, there are different opportunities out there for you and different stories for you to tell. And this also isn't about that. This is about speaking to a more general audience, but also speaking to your peers, which is interesting. Okay, work since then. Since finishing and since being an elderly new generation thinker, I have made appearances on BBC Radio. We did get to make a lovely BBC Arts film. I recommend you watch it. About newspaper sellers. Another really interesting thing. Tight budgets, very tight scripts, no time at all, really quick turnarounds, but fascinating to do. I went on BBC Radio 4 last week to talk about women police in World War I. And I said, how did you get in touch with me? And he said, someone was in the office, and they said, oh, that's interesting, that's really nice. So it's good to be that's part of being good people, isn't it? Just to be around in the women police during World War I was not my specialism, now I know lots about it. But it's in the thing, 3 days research and interviews for about 600 days. But I suppose it's all about the kind of the legwork backstage. I even got on Radio 5 Live to talk about Piers Morgan and Susan Sarandon and the debacle around cleavage for 10 minutes, which was interesting. It was interesting, and it was £30 for 10 minutes. At those rates, I'm happy to talk about Piers Morgan and Susan Sarandon. But as a way of imagining the studio, of not feeling cowed by the opportunity, of thinking, what do they want? What when they say Naomi Paxton, what do they expect me to say? And then saying a bit of that in order to not to alienate anyone, and then trying to get in and say my point. And it was really interesting, especially on Radio 5 Live, which has a completely different audience, to go in, grab your point and sort of come away. And I think I'd learned that through doing New Gens. This was a wonderful piece of work for Parliament 2015 that was up in Parliament, and I'd spoken to the artist about it. This is actually a part of a suffrage play here, which she included. And then I pitched that as an idea to Radio 3, and we went on and we spoke about it, which was great. They constantly ask for ideas. I've pitched at least 20. I've been on 4 times since. And I've had lots of rejections. That's how it happens. I've also pitched Archive on 4 ideas. I've pitched all kinds of other things. I think just keep moving forward and see what happens. And even the fact of reframing it, the fact of saying why this is interesting, who you might want to interview, who you might want to work with, just kind of pulls out ideas. Women at RADA, which is just over the road, I've spoken for them a number of times at events at the Conway Hall and at RADA. Again, bringing the research for me into the industry and speaking to the people, that's really important. I think that's my brief overview of being a new generation thinker. Thank you very much for listening.